You've come out and said this is the BlackBerry moment for Apple. Why?
The reason it's a BlackBerry moment is that when it comes to AI, it's invisible, the strategy that Cook and Cupertino have. And right now, this is essentially, in big tech, it's an F1 race in Monza. And Cook is on a park bench drinking lemonade, watching it go by. Internally, it's not going to happen. There's no development that's going to happen internally to get Apple into the game when it comes to AI. And we've talked about it, whether it's perplexity, whether it's despite regulatory doubling down on Google in terms of a Gemini partnership, or getting new blood in, getting new leadership under Cook. Because look, this is, I think when you think about Cook's legacy, which has been so historic, this will tarnish his legacy.
When I think of his legacy, I think of buybacks and supply chains. Is he the right man to lead this company?
Look, I think it's a key moment for him. I believe he is to be CEO, especially for the coming years. But you cannot be the biggest consumer base in the world, 2.4 billion iOS devices, 1.5 billion iPhones, and miss the fourth industrial revolution. And that's why it comes back to those WWDC events that we are at. It's a back to the future moment. You feel like you're back in 2016.
They like being late. Is being late an option on this one?
No. And look, being late is one thing, being casually late, this is something where you can miss the moment. And that's why the reason we call it a BlackBerry moment, because it's not just going to be about, okay, we have an orange iPhone this year and this is the little
You think
nuances.
he needs to bring in new talent, but they've already lost top talent to Meta. Why do you think he's going to last till 2030?
Because this is, I believe they got to rip the Band-Aid off, change the DNA in Cupertino. Look, no one could argue, and we've been one of the biggest supporters of Apple to where they are today. But you got to recognize the game's change. And in the AI revolution, in wartime CEOs with Zuckerberg and Musk and everything you've seen, obviously from Nadella and Jensen, you cannot just sit there watching this go by. And even if they did a Perplexity deal, and you talk about, and that was a $30 billion deal, it's a drop in the bucket relative. But the longer they wait, that continues to be the overhang. A huge overhang was lifted last week in terms of tariffs and obviously in terms of what they did in the White House. But the elephant in the room continues to be AI.
What about the Google Gemini partnership?
Look, it comes down to, as I covered Microsoft in the late 90s, you could add, Gates' bomber biggest regret was during all the regulatory DOJ, they didn't go after some of the biggest technology trends. And they ultimately won that case. Now for Google, and it comes to Apple, you cannot just sit here and just be on that treadmill at 2.5 speed. They got to focus, and I believe when it comes to partnership, that's something that they're going to have to seriously, aggressively consider.
What is this investment commitment all about? Who are they kidding here? How much money are they actually going to invest in this country?
Well, look, that's why, if you go back to, we've always said, the chance of them making an iPhone in the U.S. is a fairy tale.
Okay, so that's not going to happen.
And the reality is, they'll continue to invest more in AI and some of the other investments.
What do they consider as investment? How much are they currently spending on CapEx on any given year? Look, can they hit the numbers they're trying to say they're going to hit when they sit in the White House with the president? It
goes back to 4 years ago, what they talked about and where they are today, right? It has a lot of that come to fruition. I think for Apple, that was we talked about it, Cook, 10% politician, 90% CEO. That was a smart move. But I do believe this administration is watching carefully their investment. And if they feel that there's a little look over there moment, they will come.
You're the analyst. Do you think there is?
I think there's definitely risk here. And I think the elephant in the room, I think the bigger thing is it's not necessarily even about investment in the U.S. It's about make the big AI investments. And you could kill two birds with one stone. Do it in the U.S. That's where you're going to innovate. Because iPhones are not going to be made here. You could also do that with an acquisition. And you could have happiness in 202 as well as on Wall Street relative to what Apple needs to do.